Welcome back, everybody, to our studies of the law of the European Union. We're continuing talking about the various different institutions of the European Union which are of particular relevance to our studies as lawyers in understanding what the European Union actually is. We took a brief overview in the previous lesson on the various institutions of the European Union as established by the Treaty on European Union. In this lesson, we're going to start to talk about the first of these major institutions in more detail. We're going to talk about the European Parliament. So, the previous lesson, as I mentioned, we talked about the ways in which the European institutions are established by Article 13 of the TEU, the Treaty on European Union. And this lesson, like I said, is going to examine the first of these, looking at the role, the powers, and the functions of the European Parliament. So, one of the things that is important to note about the European Parliament is that it is the only institution within the European Union that is directly elected by the citizenry of the member states. You will have European parliamentary elections at very regular intervals if you are a member of the European Union, if you are in a member state that is a part of the European Union. Now, the main functions of the European Parliament involves holding to account the Commission as well as holding to account the President of the Commission, both of which are very important roles for the establishment of democratic legitimacy and accountability within the Union itself, within the Union's political system. Now, the formal codification of the rules and powers of the European Parliament are outlined in Article 14 of the TEU. So if we look at the Treaty on European Union, specifically Article 14, it says the following. It says that the European Parliament shall, jointly with the Council, exercise legislative and budgetary functions. It shall exercise functions of political control and consultation as laid down in the treaties. It shall elect the President of the Commission. This is one of the main methods by which it holds the President of the Commission account. It elects the President of the Commission. The European Parliament shall be composed of representatives of the Union's citizens. They shall not exceed 750 in number, plus a president. Representation of citizens shall be digressively proportional, with a minimum threshold of 6 members per member state. No member state shall be allocated more than 96 seats. So this is essentially talking about the ways and the methods by which we see representation being established within the European Parliament itself. It is done on a proportional basis. You have the smaller member states having less seats, and you have the larger member states having more. But there is a minimum and a maximum threshold that is established by this particular provision as well. The minimum threshold is 6 members per member state, and the maximum threshold is 96 seats per member state as well. The European Council shall adopt by unanimity on the initiative of the European Parliament and with its consent a decision establishing the composition of the European Parliament, respecting the principles referred to in the first sub-paragraph. Part 3 says that the members of the European Parliament shall elect for a term of 5 years by direct universal suffrage in free and secret ballots. So this is essentially talking about the term limits for members of the European Parliament. You have a term of 5 years. It is done through an election, which is a free and secret ballot, which is representative of the elections to the citizenry, and is also done through universal suffrage. So we're not going to limit the ability for individuals to actually to vote on the basis of various characteristics and discriminatory principles. Part 4 says that the European Parliament shall elect its president and its officers among its members. Okay. Quite simple. Let's think about this in more detail then. The President of the European Parliament is elected from the members of the European Parliament. So these are known as the MEPs. So a President of the European Parliament will be one of these members, and like it says here, will be elected from this pool of members of the European Parliament. And the president will serve for half of a parliamentary term. So, given the fact that Article 14 of the TEU outlines a parliamentary term as being 5 years, a president serving half that time means that they serve 2.5 years. So you have 2 presidents per parliamentary term. They will be the primary representative of the Parliament when it comes to negotiations and conversations with other members of the European Union, i.e. when it comes to other institutions. So where there are negotiations and conversations that are had between the Parliament and the Commission, or the Council and the Parliament, etc., etc., it will be the President that spearheads the majority of these various kinds of conversations and negotiations. They are also the person who gives the green light to documentation on behalf of the Parliament itself. Now, given all of these factors in terms of the composition and structure of the Parliament, what do the powers of the Parliament entail? Well, according to Article 14, the European Parliament is given the power to amend, adopt, or reject the European Union's budget. So it has quite significant financial controls over the other institutions, should I say, of the European Union. And this is reflected in the fact that the European Parliament is directly accountable and directly elected by the people of the member states of the European Union. It makes sense to suggest that they will have a lot more authority when it comes to the budgetary and financial decisions that are made by the Union with the taxpayers' money that is given to the Union by the member states. This is a power that is shared in conjunction with the Council of the European Union, and the procedure for adopting and establishing the EU budget is outlined in more detail in Article 314 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. So the TFEU outlines the general procedure for which an EU budget is established. This is a basic overview. What will happen is the European Commission will draft a provisional EU budget, which will then be sent to both the Council of the European Union as well as the European Parliament. The Council will then adopt a position on the budget before sending this information to the Parliament. The budget then goes through a number of stages within the Parliament itself, and also within the Parliamentary Budget Committee, before being, if it is agreed, it is adopted by the Parliament and therefore adopted as the official EU budget. If it is rejected, then it means that the whole process must begin again, with the Commission submitting a new draft budget with relevant amendments attached. Now, when it comes to the relationship between the Parliament and the Commission, this is arguably the most important legal power of the Parliament. It has the ability to hold the European Commission to account. This is outlined in Article 234 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union. What Article 234 says is that if a motion of censure on the activities of the Commission is tabled before it, the European Parliament shall not vote thereon until at least 3 days after the motion has been tabled, and only by open vote. If the motion of censure is carried by 2/3 majority of the votes cast, representing a majority of the component of members of the European Parliament, the members of the Commission shall resign as a body, and the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy shall resign from the duties that he or she carries out in the Commission. They shall remain in office and continue to deal with the current business until they are replaced in accordance with Article 17 of the TEU. In this case, the term of office and the members of the Commission appointed to replace them shall expire on the date which the term of office of the members of the Commission obliged to resign as a body would have expired. What is this essentially telling us? Well, it gives us the ability for the Parliament to essentially resign and deliver and issue a motion of censure to the Commission and therefore look to appoint a new Commission, which is incredibly important and an incredibly influential power that the European Parliament has.